I have two adult sons, and I enjoy writing. I enjoy meeting people. I see myself as very sociable.
Yeah.
And I'm here on this platform today to share some of my experiences of going through the mental health system, coming out on the other side, and just hoping that it will inspire others who hear, encourage others who hear, and also know that there's hope and that we can get through this together. Okay. Daryl, the gentleman there, is my son. Brenda is one of my besties. We actually went to school together.
Yes.
Left school and ended up going to college together at the same college. And unbeknown to us, we actually ended up in the hospital at the same time, but we didn't know we were there until we went wandering on the walls and saw each other. So there's been a lots of twists and turns, and it's quite fascinating. But we are both on the other side of coming out together too. So that's a bit
wonderful. I heard somebody call mental health the final taboo, you know, which is, I think there's probably quite a lot of truth in that. We were just talking about why it's been so difficult to talk about this in different spheres, you know, in society as a whole, actually. And we mentioned things like the mystery around the subject. There's also associated pain, isn't there? And that's also quite difficult for people to deal with sometimes, and just be able to see, you know, and acknowledge.
Talking about, you know, how people fear being judged and being thought of less.
Sometimes there's a fear of labeling, because you get the impression that labels stick. You can't, they're not easily removed. And also a culture of protecting your family. So keeping quiet and protecting your family, and not speaking about these things, you know, because not everyone's for your interest. Some people want to hear information and run with it and gossip. So there's the culture sometimes that we're in of keeping things to ourselves. You know, what's within the family stays with the family, you know, because you just want to protect, you know, yourself and your family. And that way you don't suffer as much hurt as if you share it and then people just use it for gossiping's sake.
There's a vulnerability there, and maybe we need to just be safer.
It's very important, trust, and when it's broken, it's very hard to get it back, you know, or to open back up again.
And confidentiality is important too. And people need to know that there's support there, and that there's people there that understand, you know, what they're going through, or people who have been through it themselves that can share, you know, their experiences and their testimony of how they came through stuff in life, which I feel that is so powerful.
What I was saying, what I understood, well, I had a friend who'd had a breakdown at the age of 14, 15, had ended up in hospital. So I think for me, that was mainly the first thing seen as she went through and she struggled through, and just the way she withdrew into herself. So I guess at that time, being a young single mom, I didn't have much. You'd heard of people around who they'd said had become unwell, they're not well, but to know really exactly the things that we know now by experience and by our learning, it's totally different than it was before.
For myself, I wasn't aware of it until I experienced it with Mum, and I was very young. So that was my first awareness of it, you know, and even then I probably didn't understand it properly.
In terms of my mental health, it wasn't recognized, or nobody was aware of it in my family, because nobody in my family had experienced mental health before. So it was totally new to them. you know, they didn't understand it. I didn't even understand it myself because I'd never experienced that before. I didn't really understand anything about mental health because in those there was no awareness of mental health back then, and my family had no knowledge of it either. So everything was quite alien to my family and to also myself. So it was something, you know, that we hadn't experienced before. It was totally new.
And usually before someone becomes unwell, there would have been little creepers or things happening. You don't just wake up one day and become unwell or become anxious one day, or if it does, it will be little things that would have happened. So it's like, what can we do to help before it gets to that standard? Or, you know, there's some talk about educating young people or children from in schools, and I wish it would be on the curriculum about what it is and what it isn't, and how can we help others to understand and to know. Because little Johnny may have mom at home who's exhibiting this, or, you know, there's different things that it just affects everyone. It has no discrimination.
Wow.
I mean, like the current like COVID-19, it has no this rich, poor, black, white, whatever. It can get you. It can get you.
And what it means to me now is that you have positive mental health and you also have negative mental health.
Yes.
And the positive mental health is about having a balanced mind and having everything in sync and in harmony with each other. And when it becomes out of sync, you know, then it becomes negative, and then you have to know where you have to go for help. And it's also about having communication and being able to speak about it, you know, and that's how you're able to promote and maintain positive mental health.
Where there's variances of ill physical health to where someone could be terminal, and ill mental health. So, but I do understand what Daryl says, but just like things like that, and and to be aware, like what you said, Sister Divinia, everybody at some point in their life will have something that is wrong that affects their mental health, thinking or being. We often, you may have someone who has anxiety, someone who may not want to socialize, someone who may not feel confidence. That is all part of, you know, like Daryl says, your mental health and well-being not being in balance.
I was reading somewhere how mental health refers to cognitive, so how the brain works, behavioral and emotional well-being. It's all about how people think and feel and behave. So that's in a wide sense, that affects everyone, doesn't it? I mean, it's important to everyone. We all have our own states of mental health that are not always noticeable, but most of us tend to look after our bodies to an extent, at least. You know, we eat, sleep, hopefully exercise, but we neglect our mental health. When it's, you know, I was reading a little quote that said, your mental health is more important than the test, the interview, the lunch date, the meeting, the family dinner, the grocery shop. We take it with us wherever we go.
And what to look out for as well, so that they're more aware of, you know, what that looks like and what sort of things you may experience in terms of your mental health, and where to access help from as well. I think that's really important, because sometimes there is a stigma with mental health, and people need to be more aware of it. There need to be more advice, more you know, information out there where people can access help, whether it be in a hospital, whether it be in the GP surgery, whether it be you know, with workshops or information days at your local church. People need to be aware so that there is help that they can access, so that they can get the help that holistic way.
Just normal life, just being with mum and my grandmother, going to school, you know, so that's how it was before, you know.
Yes.
There wasn't really anything, I would say, that led me to believe that my mum would be ill or sick until when it actually happened.
I think mental health now is very important. I mean, I think people need to be aware that, you know, that there is mental illness, because
Yes.
I think people need to know the different forms of mental illness and the different forms that it takes.
What it was like for me before is that obviously I would have been happy because my mum was looking after me and my brother, and my mum would take my brother and I, like, on holiday. We'd go to the West Indies. She'd take us to the Caribbean, and we'll just have a nice fun time together. And you know, I remember these things as well because we got videos. My mum always used to take a video camera and film.
Yes.
Us when we were little, when we go away and stuff. So it's something we can watch over and over again. So I do remember it, you know, and having those videos helped. So I just remember it being a good time with my mum and with my grandmother, you know, because those were the two that raised my brother and I.
What was my life like? I am quite sociable, love life, love people, meeting people, talking, mixing, mingling, happy-go-lucky and whatever. I had worked in social services in my local borough. I enjoyed the work. I had just wanted to move on. I'd been there for a while. Went to education and had a job there, but it didn't. The management didn't like me. He really didn't. I think he didn't like lots of people. It seemed like it was women. And he come from County Hall, and now I remember this is when local authorities had just taken over a lot of the directorates and education requirements. Just made my life really difficult. I would say it was down to bullying. I don't know if it was an element of racism, I'm not sure. But he done very mean things. I was admin, like one of the admin there, one of the senior admin. But one of the first things he did was said that I could no longer park my car in the car park. And I thought, what? And I challenged him why. He said, because you're not management.
Yeah.
And I said, well, where should I park? And he said, go to the local Safeway. That's where Morrison is. Mother of a 5-year-old, and I was working for a property firm as a secretary in the community, and I remember I was going to work. I was dropping my son at nursery, and I was working. I used to do a lot of work where I was working with an employer. They were pretty nice, but I think for me it all got too much. And we had pigeonhole, because I get my letters, you know, the pigeonhole. And he said, and you can't have one of those. And it was this barrage, and the way he would talk to you. And then I'd always have flexi time, because I'd go to work early. Was it flexi they called it back then? I think so, yeah. I'd go to work early, 7:38. And stay a little bit later, because I'd build up hours, because I had the 2 young boys, so I could have long weekends like every 2 weeks or so. I think he didn't like it, so he took away my flexi and he put me on standard hours of 9 to 5. And it was just a bit of grinding down, and you know, I challenged him, but he always seemed to win, and he'd go to his manager and they didn't seem to see it, and the union rep took it on. She ended up leaving. She fell in depression. And
I first became unwell in the 90s. I think it was 1990. I was working a full-time job. I was a single parent because I was trying to, my son's father went away in prison. I was working full-time. I was trying to look after my son as well. When I'd finish work, I'd have to go and pick him up, and then I would have to come home, clean the house, cook, and I think just became overwhelming when I was doing it all by myself, because I was living in my own flat. And I didn't have the help when once I was working full time and trying to cope with looking after my son, taking care of the house, cooking, cleaning, washing.
Again, I remember once he brought in a stack of filing, and it was like 5 to 5. Just walked in and plunked them in, and said, these need filing, and went out, slammed the door, and I thought, "Wait, I'm going home." And he came back and he said, "And I want it done today." And it was telling, because the boys were picking up on it, and they would come, I won't call his name, and they would say, "Oh, Mum was like, say the name was Peter. Was Peter mean to you today? Was Peter mean to you?"
It was the withdrawness, maybe some of the things that she used to do, maybe being in the kitchen or just being up about, she wouldn't be doing that so much, so a bit more into herself, maybe lying down a bit more, and being a lot more quiet, so it was just those type of different signs, and then later on it will develop, like Sister Brenda, she'll be up maybe a bit late.
I became where I wasn't sleeping properly. I was up, I was up a lot, my mind was overactive, I wasn't eating properly, and my thoughts just became irrational, my thoughts just became irrational, where I wasn't, I just wasn't, my mind wasn't functioning the way it should.
And I had this heavy heart. I'd walk up with my briefcase, and every time I came to that building, my heart would sink.
Yeah.
But the worst part of it for me was I had successfully secured secondment from social services to go on, because I wanted to train to be a social worker with a view to doing probation work.
Yes.
So I got the secondment, and you get it, they pay for your fees, everything, and you come back, you do 2 years work, and I got that, and I'd moved to the directorate, still in the local borough I lived in Hackney. And when it came for the final bit for me to go to Middlesex Uni, he refused the secondment.
Wow.
That broke my heart, because I'm there looking for this career that I've always wanted to do. Now I don't have a job now, because it means giving up your job, but the job will pay you, and then you come and work for them for 2 years. And challenged it, he refused it. Wow. So I ended up going to uni, just trying to find out how am I going to finance things, because I hadn't factored it in, so it means I had to pay my bill, I had to do this, that.
So sometimes she's very, very low, and then sometimes she's very, very overly happy, overly excited, so, but as a child, it's very difficult to understand, you just see your mum as your mum, when she's overly excited, that you want to be overly excited too, and then when she's very low, you just want to try and look after her and help her to get that better. So so that's kind of what I think, and sometimes it's difficult for me to remember, because I think at the time, I did try to suppress a lot of things and try not to remember a lot of things, but I get bits here and there, and then when my brother is here as well, and when he speaks about it, then it's like, oh yeah, I remember that part now. So sometimes he remembers a lot more than I did, because there were times as well when I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, and my brother would spend a lot more time with my mum. So in some ways, maybe I was shielded from a lot of it by staying with my grandmother, whereas my brother, my younger brother, he would spend more time with my mum. So he might have seen more, he did see more than what I saw.
So I had to be focusing on my son and everything like that. But then when I kept working and looking after my son and trying to cope with not having a dad there to help me, my thoughts became irrational, because I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating properly. I started lighting candles all around the house, I started doing really things that were bizarre, get up early in the morning, run out of the house.
We're not created or made to deal with stresses. I mean, we have a certain level, but then you get it and you're expected to get on with it, and it's like, but it's not a good thing to get on with it.
I remember I was going to work, I was dropping my son at nursery, and I was working. I used to do a lot of work where I was working with an employer. They were pretty nice, but I think for me it all got too much, because I was trying to, my son's father went away in prison. I was working full time. I was trying to look after my son as well. When I'd finish work, I'd have to go and pick him up. and then I would have to come home, clean the house, cook, and I think just became overwhelming. My brothers went to the house and they saw all how I had candles all around the house. They took my son, looked after him, and then when I went to the GP with my mum, she was telling the doctor all these different things I'm doing. I'm not sleeping, I'm acting bizarre, I'm doing all these strange things, when I was doing it all by myself because I was living in my own flat. And I didn't have the help when I was working full time and trying to cope with looking after my son, taking care of the house, cooking, cleaning, washing. Everything just became too much for me. And
quite
it just all came crushing in. And then I just had a breakdown.
I realized when I got to uni that something was wrong. Like, I wasn't happy. I wasn't engaged. I would talk. People still saw me and said, "Oh, you're confident." I'm thinking, well, I'm not. And then, I realized that I'm not as happy. I'm not engaged, and I'm talking, and I would order my food I couldn't eat, and so forth. And it's slowly going down and down. And I struggled through it. The first year, the second year, but it was getting difficult. Spoke to my tutor, personal tutor, and told him I just feel so pressured and I'm not that happy. I don't know why. And he said a lot of students feels that way. It gets tense and to keep on, and it really wasn't favourable.
So you just thought it was just the stresses of student life then?
He did, but I didn't, because it just wasn't me at all.
I didn't realize that it was it was too much for me at that time. I mean, I was about 27, I think, and 26, 27, and it just became too much, and I couldn't cope. I couldn't cope with it all, and before I realized I couldn't cope, that was when I had my breakdown.
And I wasn't coping at home as much, but still pressing on, because the family wanted me to press on. You're nearly there. You can do it. Sort of thing. So,
one of my school friends, we used to always go raving and, go out partying and stuff like that. But when I had my son, we couldn't do that anymore. So she kind of drifted off, and I had my responsibility of looking after my son as best as I could. And when I started to get unwell, I couldn't look after him as best as I could, and my mum took him, and I went into the hospital, and that was how that part of my life went.
Her face is there, but she's frozen. She's not. She's moving a bit now. She's coming to come, so it's like from the bed to come. There she is. She's come now. See.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
We was watching you come in stages, that you'd come and you'd free notes, and I'm saying she's coming, then you twitch, then we said she's coming to come, and then you did, and then you was there. So we saw the stages.
I didn't have a lot of friends around me. I didn't have friends around me at all. There was no friend checking in on me, or there was no connection with anybody as such, because as I said, like when I had my son, my best friend at the time, she kind of drifted off, because we used to always go raving. I've never been one to have a lot of friends. I've never been that type of person. I might have had one or two friends, and especially when I had my son, friends pulled away from me because they were single. They wanted to go and rave. They wanted to do their stuff, whereas I couldn't do it no more.
He said, go back into your work, because we need probation workers, and we need like ethnic minority probation workers and whatever. And I struggled to do the assignments. I would struggle. I only had one bit to complete would have qualified as a qualified social worker doing my CQSW back then, but I didn't get to do it. And then I ended up doing sections.
There's some different things like low energy. I mean, I think I've had that before. Like, you know, you just don't have energy to do things. It's amazing how the mind and the body interact.
I think for me, I was going beyond my energy level. Yeah, they said I had bipolar, chemical imbalance. So I had bouts of being really extremely high. I had bouts where I'd be cycling, doing, you know, and not stopping. And then I'd have bouts of being depressed where I don't want to open the door, don't want to answer the phone. You know, I find it difficult to cook, you know, where I'd have to get takeaways in. You know, I have days where, you know, I was struggling to do my normal household tasks. I'd have washing piled up. Like I was saying, like sometimes I still have those times where my son said to me, even yesterday, Mum, you're always, you don't like to sleep, switch off. So he actually had to take my phone off me, switch off the phone, and he said, Mum, go and rest. You know, so it's sometimes I would recognize it and other times I wouldn't, you know, so, but my son could see it, you know, you would say, Mum, switch off the phone, you go and rest. So that's times where you're not kind of relaxed and too laid back, and then you have times where you're too
so Brenda, would a good analogy be then that you're cycling on a bike and you know you need to get off, but you're still cycling anyway, and the bike is just going and going and going, and you're going at speed, and you know you're going to hit danger, but you can't jump off the bike.
Yeah, just very good analogy. You hit it spot on.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's also being waves.
Waves.
Going up and down.
You go up, you go down, you go up, you go down. You know, and I couldn't cope. You know, and you know, the fact that my mum took me to the doctors to get some kind of help, which was when they referred me to the psychiatric hospital, and that's where I met Sister Eileen. You know, we went to school together anyway, but
we ended up in the hospital. I spent 4 months there, and that's where I met Brenda there, wandering around the wards like you do.
I had a lot going on in terms of, you know, trying to cope with everything that was going on, you know, losing my son's father, not being there to support me. And also, you know, I was in a flat, my first flat by myself, with my young son. And, you know, and I was trying to cope with, you know, taking care of the home, looking after my son, holding down a full-time job, and everything just became too much.
But of course we know that statistics show that sometimes there's groups of people that seem to be more susceptible, and again it's looking at the whole thing and the whole cause of why is that so, and what is it, and what is the infrastructure, what's gone on, because no one, just like no one is addicted to drugs, you're not born addicted to drugs, alcohol, like that. No one is born having a diagnosis of this or that. You know, there's different things, life experiences, challenges, you know, being you know, not included, bullying, lots of things. You know, lots of things will shape us into the person we become, and then try to shape ourselves into the person that we should have been. But we need help from others who are willing to help us in that journey.
I was unsteady and, you know, irrational, and, you know, I was working, and I was not sleeping or eating properly.
Wow.
You know, I was up a lot, you know, my mind was overactive, you know, I wasn't eating properly, and my thoughts just became irrational, you know, my thoughts just became irrational, where I wasn't, I just wasn't, my mind wasn't functioning the way it should. You know, and I just became overwhelmed with everything that I had to do as a single mother. You know, I felt quite isolated as well, you know, and, you know, it just became too much.
Yeah, but yeah, I just think it was lots and lots of different adverse circumstances.
Yeah.
And it just came piling one after one. And you know, we weren't created or made to deal with stresses. I mean, we have a certain level, but then you get it like, and you're expected to get on with it. And it's like, but it's not a good thing to get on with it.
Also, I had issues around being abused as well as a child, and all those factors kind of fed into each other, you know, and everything became too much.
As to your, you're not feeling well, like what they'd given me and whatever, I can't remember what it was. I'm not Procyclidine.
Haloperidol.
Side effects of it was my neck was twisted and up. So my family would visit me, and mum and my sister going, straighten your neck, and my friends and I, like after about a day or two of me being in there too. And he was asking, why is her neck? And he said, have you given her, I think it was an antidote, which was Procyclidine. Then my neck straightened up. And so I'd have been walking like that. Yeah, so there's all these things that are unkind, and you're left. And if you haven't got someone to support in a way, it's really tough.
I had so much going on. It was just so too many different things were going on. It became overwhelming, you know. So for me, that it was just too much, and I couldn't cope with it.
And sometimes people talk about stuff like biological factors, family histories, life experiences such as traumas or abuse. Have energy to do things. It's amazing how the mind and the body interact.
I think for me, I was going beyond my energy levels. You know, I just kept going and going and going and going and going. For me, that was what I was doing. You know, I just kept going. I kept working. Yes. I kept, you know, running up and down, picking up my son, preparing him, getting him ready for nursery, cooking, cleaning, washing, trying to get the house. I was quite a perfectionist at that time. Everything had to be in its, you know, and I think I was just doing too much, and I didn't know when to stop. You know, I just kept going and going and going, and it just came crashing down, really.
Yeah.
Just too overwhelming. When my mum did eventually see that, you know, I wasn't myself, and she took me to the GP, and told the doctor all these different things that I was doing. My brothers went to the house, and they saw how I had candles all around the house. They took my son, looked after him, and then when I went to the GP with my mum, she was telling the doctor all these different things I'm doing. I'm not sleeping, I'm acting bizarre, I'm doing all these strange things. But I know that was a battle going on in my mind.
Yeah.
And there was a battle of good and evil. Like, it was a fight between good and evil.
Yeah, because I know what my experiences were, you know, in that I was depressed, and actually giving my life to Christ in prayer in somebody's living room, that was when I began to heal. Like, immediately God intervened. And then I was smiling on the bus. I couldn't stop smiling. Whereas before I'd been depressed. Just the moment before, I was like, you know, but everything
always amazing.
Wrong. And then suddenly, you know, that's where it all began. You know, that's where life started for me.
So folks needs to know that. And where medication has its place, and it might be other things that play. There's so much.
There's so much.
And even when you said that as well, when my mum did get better, eventually my grand's influence, my mum and I did join the church, and we were baptized together.
Yeah.
So
did Sister Brenda.
And Sister Brenda came as well. Yeah. Was she after us? Yeah.
No, I introduced her to the church because I was visiting. and she started visiting, but she was like, I want to get in the pool, and she got baptized before me, and I'm like, but I was there before her. So then we got baptized, and another friend got baptized. There was a few of us that came in.
And then Marcus got baptized too. So so we've all been connected in some way.
So God has turned this around in many different dimensions and ways.
It's difficult for me to remember because I think at the time I did try to suppress a lot of things and try not to remember a lot of things, you know, but I get bits here and there, you know, and then when my brother is here as well and when he speaks about it, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember that part now. So sometimes he remembers a lot more than I did, you know, because there were times as well when I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, and my brother would spend a lot more time with my mum. So in some ways, maybe I was shielded from a lot of it by staying with my grandmother, whereas my brother, my younger brother, he will spend more time with my mum, so he might have seen more, you know. He did see more than what I saw, you know, but the love was always there, but it was just different moments, highs and lows.
Quite a journey, isn't it, you know, as you're saying that. Sometimes there's bits of memories that you're dealing with at different points.
And I think it's good what you're doing, because often the voice of the child gets left behind because you're focusing on the one who's presenting the situation. For me, it was like a bit of an awakening when we did an interview before and both my sons was there, and I said, do you want to do it? And just listening, I'm like, oh, this is how it affected them. This was what they were processing. Oh, I forgot that bit. Well, that's why my younger son was getting so angry, and that's why Daryl didn't remember as much as Desh was with mum, Desh was with me.
A lot of it we didn't understand, you know, but I think the caring side will still come over. So if we will see mum unhappy or not eating, we will try to bring her things, tea, toast. Why are you not eating? You need to eat, you need to get your strength back. If she was overly happy and excited, I think we will be overly happy and excited too, you know. So, you know, but we realized that that's not really our mum per se. But it was better to see her that way than to see her low and not eating. And, you know, so as an 11-year-old, I think I was at that time, I didn't really understand much. I had to do things to take my mind off, whether it was going to the creative writing groups or
something social.
Something social, to take my mind off. I was still looking forward to going to the trip anyway, you know, because it was like to get away and to do something fun. And I think even my mum recalls, or she's told me, I think I even wrote a postcard and I sent it to her. And to my gran, I was talking about all the animals I'm seeing and what they're excreting and all different stuff. And so I was away, and even though there was things going on back home, I was still trying to keep as normal and be as normal, you know, in the eyes of an 11-year-old, you know, whatever normal is for them. Yeah, it was a tough time, a difficult time, but I guess, you know, when I think about it now as an older person, then I realize kind of maybe how much I went through at that time. But God was there in the midst and he brought us through it, you know.
So I actually met Brenda. I was in hospital one day, just wandering around the ward, and went downstairs. I was upstairs, and I saw her, and I said, Brenda, and she said, me, and I said, what are you doing here? And she said, they got me, and then I went, they got me too, Brent, and we didn't even know we were in the ward together, but
yeah, she was upstairs, I was downstairs.
Wow.
It was just weird.
Amazing.
We were both there, and we didn't know. There's another card up there, and he writes as well. He drew a beautiful picture. I was going to show you it.
Oh, lovely.
It's this beautiful picture that I got the other week, and it's even for being through the mental health system. It says, when pigeons get to heaven, they turn into beautiful doves.
Oh.
And he's shown the pigeons at the bottom.
Yeah.
And then he shows them flying up and they're doves.
Wow.
To purpose, and I called it Lessons for Life. Drinking from the wells of our humanity, what does that mean to you and me? Being gentle, kind, patient and good, even when you or some other is misunderstood.
That was where my confidence started to grow, and I started to feel better about myself. And then I was able to go out a bit more, because I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to be around people, large groups of people. I didn't want to be around that. I didn't want to be around people because I still felt quite vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so, but after I started working on myself and trying to improve my mindset and change my mindset from being negative to positive, I started to feel more confident. And then I started to go out to the park. Sometimes I would still feel anxious. I would still get like a panic attack or anxiety attack, but I would come home and then I would kind of not go for a while, and I'll still work on myself some more, to try and get stronger emotionally and mentally. And those things were what helped me. And
healing, spiritual life, kind of really playing a big part.
And a lot of times people don't realize the spiritual side and ill mental health.
But I know that was a battle going on in my mind.
But I felt I'd never drive again, I'd never work again, I'd never love again, I'd never be loved again, I'd never this. And then when I saw the job for the Patients Council, and I thought it was voluntary, and I thought, can I do it, can I not?
Have supportive people that you could talk to, whether it's a family member, a friend, someone that you can just share your burden with, which will make it will help you to feel better about yourself. It will also give you encouragement as well. And it will give you hope, and it will give you strength as well, just finding someone you can talk to about what you're going through.
Just remember as well that it can happen to anybody, You could be a rich person, you could be a celebrity, so much celebrities, the royal family, Prince Harry, Albert Einstein, Winston Churchill, all these people that were celebrities, prime ministers, they've all suffered mental illness, and many people that have suffered mental illness, they go on to do great things. And become, we always have dark tunnels, but there's always a light at the end of that tunnel.
And truly believe that nothing stays the same forever. Hope, and the light does get brighter, and the cloud does move. It will move, and change will come, and changes that need will come, and your life can be turned around like mine has been, from pain to purpose.